Okay, we are going to get into some of your questions now, guys. We've got about 12 questions. Our very first question, comes from Sam Hawkins. I'm going to throw this one to you, Timmy, right up your alley. Top 3 tips for beginners. What would be your advice to someone coming new into the game? You obviously joined the game last year. I sat here with you and really helped you through the affair. So anything you've got to help them with, maybe something I passed on to you, whatever it might be, shoot. Help Sam and his mates out.
Yeah. Rattled.
You thought that was going to be a nice bit of content, didn't you?
Yeah. I was about to, no, just let him have it. He can have this win. A million different ways I could go with tips for beginners early in the season. The 3 that I've sort of come up with is, I think the trap that beginners fall into in their first couple of years of Supercoach, and to be honest, experienced Supercoaches do the same thing because they get excited, is Supercoach, your first 17 players score for you. Now, that seems like the be-all and end-all because they're the points. They're the ones that go towards your overall total, etc., etc. But it's a 25-person game. There's 8 there that will be in your reserves and won't score points for you each week, but they are every bit as important as your starting players. So a beginner Supercoach might jump on there and spend a stupid amount of their salary cap on their starting 17, and then the last 8 players, they go, oh, they're not playing for me, so I don't need them anyway. You absolutely need them. Now, one thing I talk about very often is about long-term strategy, playing the long game in Supercoach. And what I mean by that is building your squad value across the entirety of the season, and it all starts in round 1. So if there's a player, don't start with a player outside your 17 who isn't playing for the NRL club in round 1, who's bottom dollar, just to free up more cash elsewhere. Even if it's a player who is starting but has poor job security, is a forward playing 20 minutes off the bench, and you think, oh, they might be able to make me a little bit of coin, don't do it. Spend up a little bit more cash. And by that I mean drop the 200k bloke, find the extra 50 to 100k for a player with good job security in a good team who looks set to make, $100,000, $200,000. It might hurt you early on because your team will score less points, but your squad value will grow across the season. So then when you get down the track and your squad's worth $15 million, and someone who started with these non-active players on their bench, their squad will be worth $13 million. And you can do whatever you want and have the freedom to move about. So that's the first one for me, mate. The second one is that gun NRL players don't always equate to gun Supercoach players. Now, the classic ones over the years are Cooper Cronk, Darren Lockyer, who are just awful, awful Supercoach players. The ones in the modern day game, Kieran Foran, Jack White is the one people fall into every season because he's such a great footballer, Dally M winner, Clive Churchill medal winner, but just doesn't always equate to Supercoach scoring, does it? So that's that. Don't just pick a bloke because he's good in the NRL. Go back and, there are so many great Supercoach podcasters and people who write articles and all sorts of things out there who do a lot of the digging for you. But do your own digging. Go onto the Supercoach site. Look at the stats from past seasons. You can go on to scplaybook.com.au. We've got a data centre on our website. You can go back and look at their past averages, and you'll see straight away who's good and who's bad. Yep. So, yeah.
Cooper Cronk was always my favourite on our Supercoach draft day. Everyone knew he was shit Supercoach-wise, but then, every year or two we'd add someone new to the draft comp, and you see them in round 10 go, oh, draft Cooper Cronk, and look up and go, and everyone go, nah, that wasn't it. Sorry, mate.
And the final one, and it's not technical, but it is vitally important. It's when we do get to round 1, it's about the makeup of your starting 13 and your 4 bench players. So we'll speak more of this leading into round 1, but your 4 bench players, you get their full points, whatever they score in the round, the same amount as your starting 13. So if you've got, let's say, Harry Grant at hooker along with Tanner Boyd, if you don't, everyone sort of thinks straight away, all right, put Harry Grant in the starting team because he's a superstar, and Tanner Boyd, he's my reserve player. It doesn't mean anything. What is important is that when you've got a bench player in that position, pick whoever is playing earlier in the round in your starting team. So, for example, if the Titans are playing earlier than the Storm in round 1, I'm not sure if they are, and you have that combination, put Tanner Boyd in your starting team and Harry Grant on your bench. Because if you start Harry Grant and Tanner Boyd's on your bench. Tanner Boyd plays, locks into that bench spot. Harry Grant is stuck in your starting team.
Yep.
And you can't do anything about it. He will be scoring 0 for you and you're stuffed. So always do that accordingly. And it's, to state the obvious, it's the same with your captaincy and vice captains. Your vice captain always has to play in the game before the captain. Because once your captain's locked in, your vice captain becomes irrelevant. Now, this isn't a beginner's tip, but we'll talk later on in the pre-season about auto emergencies and loopholes and these sorts of things. But just on face value, vice captain always playing before the captain.
And I also think that what you said about, picking guys when they play on the weekend sounds like such a basic thing, and it probably won't cost you. But if it costs you twice in a season, it could, to cop an AE on the bench, that could cost you 120 points.
Yeah.
And for example, if that would have happened to me twice last year, you would have beaten me, which, would have just sent the world into fucking chaos.
You're on one today, aren't you?
But that's how close it can be. Like, if we were in the same comp and that happened, can you fuck that up twice for something very minor? It can cost you big time.
And you know what, mate? It is so simple to avoid. It just takes one quick look at who plays when of a Thursday afternoon before the round starts, but it catches out the best of us.
100%.
I've been caught out before. I'll be caught out again. Hopefully not this year, but it'll happen. So just a quick look Thursday afternoon. Who are my 4 bench players? If they're playing early in the round, start them. And whoever you've got starting, put them on the bench. If they're laid out, anything happens, you can change them to a new reserve.
Yep, fair shout. Question number 4. This one comes from Wayne Perini. Is having a loop option a must, or think with buy each week there will be options? Obviously, Wayne has mentioned here the buy, but I feel like a lot of people out there are forgetting that we are going to have a buy every week. There's going to be players sitting there.
Every single week. On top of blokes who got HIA the week before and can't play. Injured, suspended, COVID, all sorts of things. Do not start the season with a non-playing reserve, a non-active player in the NRL, because you're going to have a loop option just about every week, which is wonderful news.
I think last year you could get away with it. This year, I think you're crazy to do it. I think you're crazy. And, mate, just for those that are new to the game or maybe wondering with buys, keep in mind that your buy players, they will lock at the end of the round, won't they?
Yeah.
So you cannot. So if you need to loop or anything, you can bring these guys in whenever you would like. If you've got a good VC or whatever, but yeah, they lock at the end of the round. Number 5. Question number 5 comes from Johnny Bright. Key areas to plan and research to be relevant at the pointy end, and I will bully you and give you shit until each and every cow comes home. But the pointy end is where you do your best work and being relevant for the pointy end. So, mate, I'll hand the floor to you, and I might take some notes myself here.
Thanks, mate. Very, very nice of you. Look,
your mum rang me earlier and begged me to say something nice about you. So
just give him one good day, and then you started with the first half an hour just launching into me. That's right. Thanks for trying, Mum.
That's all right.
So it's sort of again, it's quite a broad question. It's a very broad question, but it comes back to the point I had for beginners early on, and it's about building squad value, about playing that long game. I mentioned on a podcast a few weeks ago, because I start with value propositions, blokes that I look at their starting price, I look at what that average is on, and I go, they're going to improve on this average, and I'm going to build squad value. As a result of that, I start slow in Supercoach. But that comes through in the back end of the season when my squad value is a lot higher than everyone else. So when people start with that non-playing reserve and they don't generate any cash for them and they're a trash cheapie, I've got a bloke that I coughed up another 50 to 100k for, but they make me 2 to 250k and they're a viable player in my 17 each week. So I just think the big thing is to play the long game. It might even be a case of short game might be going, all right, this player has a great round 1 matchup, but then round 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 has terrible matchups. And you get excited by that round 1. You go, oh, he could kill it. Yeah, but what happens the weeks after that when they have the tough draw? Just think long game. It might be taking into the buy period considerations, all these sorts of things. But squad value is everything to me, and it's generating that early cash.
Yeah, for sure. Number 6. All right, question number 7 comes from Joel Fraser. Says, main difference between overall and head-to-head strategies. Very, very interesting. Obviously, a big question for a lot of people out there, especially for new people to the game that'll hear this thrown around a lot that won't understand it. Explain it to us.
Yeah, it is a really good question. And the main difference is that origin period, mid-year, where there's the 3 major bye rounds where only half the teams in the competition will play, which means we don't have 17 Supercoach players active in our squad. Overall players from round 1 are planning for that period to get max players on deck to make sure they're accumulating points through that period. Head-to-head players in those 3 major bye weeks basically put a line through it and go, sweet, if I have 3 active players, that's fine. I'll cop my head-to-head loss, but I won't tear my team apart for the rest of the season just to get a few extra numbers on deck for that. Because if you're a head-to-head player and you're going, my goal this season is to beat my mates in my league, if you tear your team apart around those 3 major bye weeks, you'll be leading into the head-to-head finals period going, shit, my mate who I'm looking like playing in round 1 of head-to-head Supercoach finals has Cleary, Munster and Grant. I sold all of those guys because they were playing Origin and I don't have the funds to get them back in. So head-to-head, you want to be saving. It's a fine line because you need to make your head-to-head finals, so you still need to do well, but you need to be saving trades for at very least week 1 of head-to-head finals, ideally week 2, week 3, week 4. So you just don't burn through trades as much. Overall, players will burn through trades to get players on deck in those 3 major bye rounds. So again, there are a lot of differences between overall and head-to-head. That is the big one. Be willing, if you're a head-to-head player, and especially a lot of, I suppose, first-time rookie Supercoach players are head-to-head players only, and they look at their ladder, and that's fine. Just be willing to sacrifice those 3 major bye rounds. If you happen to jag a win on one of those weeks, happy days. If it's 3 losses, that's fine. It'll stand you better in the long term.
Shout out to my mates who start the season as overall and always finish as head-to-head players. Yeah. Some of the greats. Let's have a look at question number 8. Comes from Cody Soso. How much money to keep in the bank? Feels like we kind of need to spend it all this year. Now, normally, I like to leave about 200K over, just in case. Where do you sit, mate?
Yeah, well, this question crops up a lot, and once again, there's no right or wrong answer. I like to try and have 50 to 100K just to give myself some flexibility for round 2. Rounds 2 and 3, another one for beginners, a very important one actually, so I'm glad the question's cropped up. Players don't change value until they've played 3 games. So if James Tedesco comes out and goes nuts in round 1 and breaks the Supercoach record, his price won't change. It won't change for 3 weeks. So that means that round 2 and 3 are so important, particularly for our cheapies, because we get a free look at players before their price changes. So, a cheapie comes out and kills it, you don't own him. It's actually one of my peeves with the game, and there are very few of them. I think the way they've structured the game with point scoring and all different sorts of things is really good. I wish players did change value after 1 game because it just sort of rewards getting these early punts right and knowledge early on, but it is what it is, so we play accordingly. Round 2 and round 3, vital weeks for trading, so I like to have a little bit of cash up my sleeve for that. And if you've got 0 in your account because you've snuck in every good player you can get, you can just find yourself really frustrated at not being able to make a move in the space of 1 trade round 2 and 3. Once again, though, if you get the exact team you want and you've got 100 in the cap and you said, nah, I'm super happy with this, so be it. There's no right or wrong answer.
And I think just on top of that, mate, you obviously mentioned, that you get to watch guys for 2 weeks. If a guy that you don't have comes out in round 1 a cheapie and absolutely fucking brains it, scores 150, just be aware to maybe wait that extra week until you bring them in. You see a lot of people that go early on players, they bring them in, and then all of a sudden they're not playing the week after, you're in trouble. I look at a guy like Tyrell Sloan. I think a lot of people won't start with him. If he comes out in round 2 after having the bye round 1 and scores 150, do not bring him in that week.
Exactly.
Wait your 2 weeks, see what happens. I look at Tyrell Sloan last year as a classic example. Came out round 1, scored 78 points. If you didn't have him and you went and brought him after that, he went 26, dropped.
Getting more technical, price changes are based on your 3-round average. How many points how many players played 3 games, they average 50 over this time, they're priced on a 70-point average. They're going to drop coin. So again, this gets a little bit technical, but for anyone out there who's not too sure of it, round 1, Teddy goes nuts. Round 2, he scores 20, and round 3, he scores 20. He'll drop a little bit because he's had 2 bad scores to go with his good one, But going into round 4, his 150, being the first score of those 3, drops out of his 3-round rolling average.
Yep.
Which means his break even, that magic number that you'll hear about all this year, goes sky high because that's the number he needs to hit to make money. So if his last 2 scores in his rolling average are 20 and 20 and he's priced at 800K, it means that his next score to hit that break-even number is going to be like 180. So that the first score of the season, to knuckle down on your point, Guru, it's a big watch on round 2.
Yes.
If they score 100 and then they come out and go 80, it's like sweet money incoming. If they go 100 and then they go 20, it's like, ooh, we might only get one decent price rise out of this bloke.
Yeah. So, and you know, for new people to the game, you'll get used to that as you go. But like, fuck, it's frustrating when you know what your trade's going to be next week. That bloke comes out and puts on 140.
Yeah.
And you go, okay, that's sitting in the rolling average now for another 2 weeks. So very, very delicate balance, but it does happen so often that people go a week early on someone, they get injured, they get suspended, they get dropped. Sometimes it can work in your favour. I think I went a week early on Taylor May last year and it turned out fantastic. He scored 100 that weekend. It was great. But you do need to be aware of it because, you can essentially waste 2 trades for no reason.
And this is how vital that is. Let's use Tyrell Sloan as an example. I know the Dragons have the bye in round 1. If in his first game he scores 140 and then he scores 20 in round 2, I am like borderline get him in because I'm like, he gets one decent rise from a bloke who I think could average 20s. If he scores 20 in round 1 or round 2, his first game, and then in his second game he gets his 140, that 140 is in his rolling average for 2 weeks, which means he gets 2 rounds of those big price rises. So I'm probably buying him.